With Biden now officially out of the way, what challenges does Clinton still face? Earlier, I spoke with Face the Nation moderator John Dickerson and Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett about just that.
Things were already looking pretty good for her as it stood. I mean, she's only ahead a little bit of Bernie Sanders in Iowa. She's down a little bit in New Hampshire. But if you look at the rest of the contests, she's well ahead. She's well ahead in endorsements. She's got the money, the organization. So now that it's just essentially a two-person race, it looks very strong for her. But A, we know that politics is unpredictable. And B, we know that there are lots of things that can happen with a Clinton campaign. They're always exciting. So this clears a major obstacle. Not so much that Biden would have been formidable in and of himself, but it would have caused changes in the Clinton game plan. And whenever there are changes, there are chances to screw up and cause unforced errors. Right.
And speaking of anything can happen, today we have Hillary Clinton testifying in front of the Benghazi Select Committee. And anything can happen, right? People are tuning in for those sort of gotcha moments. Major, I want to ask you, what does she have to do or not do to make sure that her testimony doesn't have an impact on her campaign? Goodness knows she's pretty practiced at testifying in this sort of environment at this point.
Well, I would say there are two conversations that are going to go on at this committee hearing today. One will be Hillary Clinton's conversation with the committee members, particularly Republicans, dealing with the questions that they ask. And the quality and the directness and the precision of those questions will have a very great deal to say about Hillary's own testimony. If Republicans overreach, if they make this appear political, then Hillary Clinton will have a very easy day on Capitol Hill. But if those questions are actually relevant about new information, which the committee represents publicly, it has uncovered, and it asks pointed, precise, and interesting and relevant questions to Hillary Clinton, and she either can't answer them or answers them in a way that conveys frustration or exasperation because she's uncomfortable with the underlying facts, that could be a moment. It's a test for the committee and how much research they've done, if they've actually unearthed anything that's new and revelatory, and how Hillary Clinton responds to it. So it's a two-way conversation. It always is in these matters. There is a political framework around it, but there's also important details, and if they get discussed and unearthed, it will be about the quality of those questions and, more importantly, the quality of Hillary Clinton's answers.
John, I saw you nodding along. Do you agree with Major?
Yeah, I mean, Major makes an important distinction that there could be a moment that may or may not have anything to do with the specifics of Benghazi, but that will cause a problem for Hillary Clinton, either on whether she's being evasive, whether she seems exasperated. It's going to be a long day for her, and anybody would might get exasperated under that kind of grilling. But at the heart of it, one of the key questions, for example, is why, when the ambassador and others asked for an increase in security, they didn't get a response. And so one of the things that Trey Gowdy, the chairman of the committee, and others are going to do is show the outgoing emails from the ambassador saying we'd really like security to be increased, and then the incoming emails, the things he was being asked about, to show that they not only weren't listening, but they were kind of weighing him down with quasi-frivolous inquiries. And so if faced with something like that, where it shows clearly that that the security situation was not being tended to, if Hillary Clinton's response is not the right one, that can create something that lives on past the details of Benghazi, but that goes to some of her central weaknesses, whether it's people who think that she's not honest and trustworthy, or people who think, gee, when she's president, we might get this kind of evasiveness, and we don't find that appealing.
Now, here's the thing, though. She's answered these questions. She's been asked and answered these questions before. We've had 7 congressional committees. We've had the State Department's Accountability Review Board report. Major sort of brought up this idea that, that there possibly is a political component. We know we've heard top-ranking Republicans suggest that there was a political motivation behind these investigations. So then I have to ask you, there's always a lot of talk about what sort of impact will this have on Hillary Clinton's campaign, but what sort of impact do you think these repeated investigations may have on the GOP party?
Well, the approval rating of Republicans in Congress couldn't go much lower. Right. So, but I think back to Major's original point, if the questions are real, if the questions in and of themselves seem to be going at the crucial issues, which is why was security low, should there have been and could there have been a better response when the attack started. If those questions are real and represent new evidence or represent a sharpening of what has so far been a muddled investigation, and those previous investigations existed, but they didn't have Hillary Clinton's emails because they didn't know her server existed, and also, according to Chairman Gowdy, they didn't have the full understanding of Ambassador Stevens' emails. So there have been previous inquiries, but there is an opportunity for this one to be uncovering new stuff. And if that new information is in and of itself compelling, then I think the charges that this is all politicized are harder to make. Now, if this looks like a clown show and there are moments of that seem to be just going right at Hillary Clinton and talking to her excessively about her server, then that could be a problem for Republicans.
So Major, assuming that this is going to be sort of the final conversation on what happened in Benghazi, it probably won't be, but do you think that this conversation, Benghazi and her private email server, is going to continue to plague her as she moves forward through the primary and maybe as she moves forward to the general election?
I think there are two different answers to that question. In the primary, I think it's going to be less of an issue than it already was. And Bernie Sanders, quite conspicuously and quite memorably in the first debate, said, "I'm sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails." That was a way to say to Hillary Clinton, I'm not going to press this issue. Democrats shouldn't worry about it, and let's move on to the bigger issues about income inequality, political money, and so on and so forth. That doesn't mean in a general election, if Hillary Clinton becomes the nominee, this isn't an issue. I think one thing that's going to be determined today is quite possibly how big an issue it will be. If this is a fact-based inquiry and Hillary Clinton is either uncomfortable with the underlying facts or gives either misleading or incomplete answers, I think Republicans will take that, hold it, keep it on the shelf, continue the investigation, and build this into a general election campaign if Hillary Clinton is the nominee. If the questions are wayward and, to use John's word, clownish, then I think Hillary Clinton might use it and put it on her shelf for the general election. Both sides are going to be looking in a general election context more than a Democratic primary one.
All right. Okay. So I just wanted one more question to ask you, John. Let's switch back to the Republicans now. Ben Carson in Iowa. We've got a new poll out. Looks like he's surging ahead of the front runner, Donald Trump. I've been saying Donald Trump so much it should have been rolling off of my tongue. What do you make of that? What's going on there?
Well, if there was going to be a state that Donald Trump was going to have difficulty, you could imagine it would be Iowa for a couple of reasons. One, Trump is turning out new people who haven't been engaged in the caucus process before. Only 1 in 5 Republicans participate in the caucus because it's a little bit complicated. You have to show up and spend some time in a gymnasium somewhere. So it was always going to be a challenge, for an organizational challenge for Donald Trump. He is doing things on the ground. He has some people working for him who have organized in Iowa before. So he's not trying to just run a campaign based on big rallies and notoriety. But so there was always going to be a challenge to him. But the question was, where was the challenge going to come from? Ted Cruz has been working Iowa very hard. He's got his father, who's a minister there, working with the evangelicals. But that hasn't worked for him. He's only at 10% in this poll. But Ben Carson has, through support within the homeschooling community and other pockets, has been slowly growing. And what this sets up, and what will be interesting to watch, is will Trump take on Carson, or will they have this sort of non-aggression pact, which has existed so far? The reason that's interesting is so far most of the battles Trump has gotten in have been with people in the other portion of the party, the so-called establishment, if you want to put a loose frame around it. And that's fine, because the people who like Trump don't like that part of the party. But the people who like Trump do like Ben Carson. And if you look at our polls, the second vote for anybody voting for Donald Trump is they go to Ben Carson. So it's a little trickier for him if he wants to take on Ben Carson, because he could offend the kinds of people who like him. So that's one thing to watch for, and also whether Carson can hold on to that vote, or whether Ted Cruz, who needs to be taking the votes that Carson has right now, whether Ted Cruz does anything Ted Carson, he's the only person not running in Republican politics right now.
Major, do you have a take it all on these numbers, Ben Carson doing so well in Iowa?
Absolutely. Ben Carson has been in Iowa for more than a year and a half. He has been a constant presence, and if he hasn't been there personally, many people who have long supported Ben Carson have been. They've been working the state quietly, aggressively, persistently, and you're beginning to see this pay off. There is also a temperamental difference, quite obviously, between Donald Trump and Ben Carson. There is nothing in Iowa Nice that is offended by Ben Carson's presentation of issues, himself or his biography. I'm not necessarily suggesting Donald Trump is in any way offensive, but he is a larger-than-life personality, which Ben Carson is not. He fits Iowa very nicely, and to John's point, He's been organized and persistent and practiced in working Iowa for a very long time, and as he and I both know, and as history in Iowa suggests, that counts for a lot.
All right, Major Garrett in Washington, John Dickerson here with us. Thank you very much, gentlemen.